All right, good morning, YouTube. Good morning to both the live and the watch crew. It's excuse me. It is Thursday morning. I'm still at home recovering. I've been hoping I'll be back to work tomorrow, and unless I make a miraculous recovery from where I'm feeling right now, I'm going to be having a pretty rough time. It's been a week since my surgery. I pulled the stent out this morning, and the pain was there this morning before, and it's only getting worse right now. I'm gonna try to be entertaining regardless, and be here for all the people that rely on me for my relentless humorous commentary on life. And my hey, good morning, Tori. It's good to see you. Yeah, so here I am. I'm trying to just push through it. I think weekday mornings now have lots of activity from the community, and don't want to get in their way. I have the energy right now to do a quick stream, so I'm just gonna briefly talk about some of the things that are going on, and I'm gonna talk about something that's been on my mind for a long time. Um, So I'm going to start talking about, like, one of my favorite topics is talking about living with obesity, and it's something that I've had to deal with most of my life, and something that is more and more common. When I was young, um, I stood out as someone living in a larger body. It was not something that lots of people were dealing with. Um, I'm not saying lots of people didn't deal with body image issues or lots of people didn't get involved in diet culture and all that sort of stuff. I think lots of people have been pushed into it. But I think as a young person, as someone in, say, high school era of my life, I was an odd one out. And I recently, for the first time, my daughter is playing sports, and I got to go see her play sports at school, and I can see that the kids on the team are all, most of them are not dealing with obesity. So it's still not the most common situation for young people, but the prevalence is on the rise. And also, kids living with obesity are not going to probably be playing a lot of sports. Especially, this is my daughter is playing female sports, and there's still a big divide there. She was actually talking about it this morning, which I don't want to go into my daughter's personal life too much, but she was pointing out the unfair nature of how scholarships are doled out and how boys sports take precedence over girls sports and all that sort of stuff, and they spend more money on them. And I said that's probably because the parents of boys in sports have a lot more opportunities to go to university on a scholarship, um, because that, like, the system's already unfair and they just keep pushing it in that direction. So I don't like that. But just looking around, I realized that for young people, and this will be about prevention to some degree, for young people, there's a common story, and so by the time they get to be my age, lots of young people say, well, I was in shape when I was in high school. And I was not. I was living with obesity in high school, but I was in far better shape than I'm in now. I weighed a lot less. I had less excess adipose tissue. I was made fun of for my size, but even at that size, I was in better shape than I am now. I kind of hope to get back to that weight ultimately, if I possibly can. I don't know if it's for a good reason or not. I honestly don't. I don't know if my life will be improved in any major way by that. There's a lot of indications that my health would improve and my mobility would improve, and the things I deal with specifically would get better. Um, but I think about oftentimes what I think about is um, the care that people living in large bodies receive when getting care from healthcare professionals. And so yesterday I had a pre-scheduled from months ago. I had scheduled a scan It's an echocardiogram, I think they call it, with the scan, like a sonogram of the heart, while also doing an EKG type measurement. They're measured simultaneously, and sound wave imaging is not as clear when you're dealing with someone with excess fat tissue or excess adipose tissue. And I was talking to the technician about that. She was great. She did not do what other people have done, which is to complain about my excess adiposity. I just asked her. I said, like, is I knew it was taking longer than usual. I could tell she had to redo stuff, and that it was, she had to work harder at it. And I was just, somewhat conversationally, but I also explained that I work in patient advocacy, and I want to make sure that I find out what's going on. So apparently, the best way to deal with this is to order a different test at a different facility. Um, and so I was thinking about that, like, if my doctor had passed on to my cardiologist more information about my health history, could they have saved me getting this test, and I would just go get the other one instead? Or do they have to try it this way first and to prove that it doesn't work or that it's not adequate? Or will they just find that the imaging they got after spending some time on it works out just fine, and I will get good care? But this is particularly a huge issue in my mind right now, because the stone the stone that I've been suffering with has been um the stone has been removed, but I was scanned in August, and they never found it in August. I don't believe the stone developed from August to early October. Um at this point, it's been over 2 weeks since I first had symptoms of the stone. I misdiagnosed the symptoms, thinking that I had been cleared of having a stone, so I didn't even think about the possibility. But the test they did to scan me was an ultrasound test, and so having excess adipose tissue might be getting in the way of getting a good measurement of that. It might not be adequate for me, so I think I need to go and talk to my healthcare professional about this. But it also means, so I'm going to talk to my doctor, who's then going to have to talk to my urologist and my nephrologist. Um, and I got dealt with by yet another urologist who I actually like quite a bit, and who I'm keen to maybe see again. Um, I really would like to know um that I'm okay. So I got to go talk to somebody, but I'd like to know that the scans being done are adequate for me, and that they're going to give me some knowledge of what my health status is. And I'm sure that some people will say, well, you've done this and that to give yourself the stones, and you need to stop doing this and that. And honestly, I agree. I've probably made lots of mistakes in my dietary intake. I do try to be fairly careful with it, but yeah, it's not always easy to eat a fully clean diet, especially with my vocation. And I'm just going to read what Tori says here. Tori says, I never played sports in high school. Remember when the boys' sports took higher precedence than the girls? They tried to keep it fair, but it really wasn't. Yeah, no, it really isn't. And if you look at the world of sports, professional athletes, the ones you see on television, they don't come out of nowhere. They come out of high school and extracurricular sports programs. Um, it isn't an accident that some men and women grow up to be professional athletes. That is something by design. Now, it may be an accident that they get the opportunities. There's a very famous book by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about, how he looked at hockey players in particular, I think from the 70s and 80s, and they, hey, Top, how are you doing? Um, I read this book a long time ago, so I don't even remember. It's got to be over 10 years ago when I read this book, but it was basically about how certain people became experts at doing things by spending a long time doing them. And what one of the things he noticed is like for boys hockey, boys, very few NHL players had birth dates after middle of the year. And the way the hockey system worked, and hockey is played at high school level, but in Canada it's mostly played at like clubs. Whereas like for like I played rugby in high school, but I never played club rugby, but there was club rugby was available. I just didn't do it. I was working. When I was in high school, I was also working. Some people would call it full-time hours. It was close to 40 hours a week I spent at work by the time I was 17, 18. Um, and that was the life I lived. So rugby and football I played. People asked me to try and play hockey. I think I might have been good at it, but I didn't. I played hockey as a youngster and didn't love it. Um, so I didn't have the skating skills. I still don't. I can skate if I have to, but I think there's very few Canadians that can't strap on a pair of skates and get out there on the ice for a few minutes. But because it's something we all try and learn a little bit. Almost all of us do, but it's not not something I was super into. Um, but we go and skate every once in a while. I think I have a pair of skates somewhere. They're in a closet. I took the kids skating. They didn't seem to love it either. It doesn't just because something's popular in your country doesn't mean it's something you're gonna love. It's just the way it is. But I did play sports, and so the common thing I find, especially talking to male patients living with obesity, is that they were a lot of them were athletes in high school, and then started working and started becoming more sedentary, and that's sort of the self blame thing that goes on. Um, so I'd like to point out to everyone that that's not everybody's story, and I certainly while I was living with obesity, I had classmates, schoolmates that were living with obesity that was far more impactful on their lives at that age, probably to the level that it's impactful on my life at my age now, at coming close to 50 years old. I'm um i'm struggling. And right now, I don't know if it's coming through in my voice. I'm trying to be pretty even right now, but I'm dealing with a tremendous pain in my kidney area right now, which I'm assuming is from pulling out the stent and from the work that was done. I'm hoping that's going to subside. I'm not. I'm still. I think I've gone 3 days without narcotic painkillers. I've taken some Tylenol. I'm hoping that's going to do it, and I'm going to avoid taking narcotics because I think you know I'm kind of on the fence about whether I'm going to be going to see a doctor. Um, I'm gonna make some decisions about that soon, but I may just go seek medical attention today. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to see how things are feeling. Um, I'm kind of expecting to feel a little tender right now, but I'm really not. I'm really on the fence about it right now, and I'm so hopefully my voice is still sounding somewhat even, and I hope the dings aren't coming through. Apparently, one of my work colleagues is having a birthday today, and I guess when the first person noticed, everyone's chiming in on the WhatsApp. Um, I'm just having some water here. So I guess what I really came on to talk about is an idea I have. I think I've talked about this before, but I've been developing an idea about maybe writing a book. So, um, a lot of people make comments to me about things. I think when you look at me, you realize it's hard to give this man a compliment because I'm pretty ugly, and I'm pretty big, and it's impolite to comment about people's weight and size and whatnot. So a lot of what people comment on is what they think might be worthy of some complimentary praise. So they talk about how much they like my voice. Apparently my voice is really deep and booming, and I'm not sure how that comes across. I mention that far too often. I think I'm looking for some sort of verification that this isn't just shit people say. Um, and I honestly don't know. I don't know when it's broadcast over the internet that there's any fidelity of my voice. It's not going to have the same tone, because these comments always come in person. And I do know that I have a deep booming voice. That is true. I scare people sometimes just saying hello. And I don't mean to. So the other thing is people, for whatever reason, seem to like the way that I write, the way I use the English language. I'm definitely not going to be, even the other language I speak, French. I could not write in French to entertain or impress anyone. But I'm thinking about writing a book, and I've thought about writing fiction books, and I'm interested in that at some point, possibly. I have written fiction in the past. But it's been a long time. But I do feel like maybe there's a place for it. And I'm interested to know if people think this is worthy. And so I'd love comments on this. But I'm thinking about writing a book about what it's like to live with obesity, from the point of view of a patient. Also with some helpful information about how to navigate this, how to avoid pitfalls, and how to avoid situations I've found myself in. But more than anything, just to sort of show the way things go, and how this disease is so multifaceted. And when I think back to my experience with it and look at things like I've tracked my weight for a long time on, oh, what do you call that thing? My Fitness Pal. My Fitness Pal is like a logging app, and I used it for years. I used it for years. I stopped using it a couple of months ago, because I just found it was getting harder and harder to deal with. Um, But I was using it, I was logging in every day, I was logging a lot of my activity, my mass, like my body mass and stuff. I was keeping track of my weight, and, and then I kinda gave up. I don't know why, it was after years of doing that, but I haven't given up on perhaps losing excess adipose tissue. But one of the things that happens when you're in a larger body is it becomes harder and harder to move, and it becomes harder to move, you move less, and you find ways to move less. And when you weigh, as I have at one point in my life, over 400 pounds, just standing up from a chair is difficult. Getting in and out of my vehicle was difficult. At that point in my life, I was still a contractor, so I had to be somewhat physically active. I had to walk around a lot of job sites and stuff, but I wasn't able to. Not well. I could do it. I could just barely do it. I've said to people before, I realized that this was a point in my life. This was a point in my life where I was. Sorry, I'm just not feeling well. Sorry, I'm gonna try to. Uh, all right. Uh, this isn't good. Okay. Um. All right, guys. I'm not doing well, so I'm gonna, I'm probably gonna have to end the streaming. I'll be okay, but I'm gonna get some help. Okay. All right.